Blast off. It's time for another episode of the Laravel News Podcast. It is episode 167. I'm here with Mr. Michael Dorinda, and I am Jake Bennett. Thanks so much for joining us. We're super stoked to have you hanging out with us today. It is May 14th, a beautiful day in central Illinois, and I don't know what kind of day in Aussie, Australia. What kind of day is it there? And why do we always start with the weather, right? You ever notice that? It's always weather. We're old men now.
Weather.
We can talk about
weather
injuries
is the
instead.
kind of thing.
Let's talk about injuries. Yep, that's
let's
that.
do
Or
it.
medicines we're taking, or things our kids are doing badly. No,
Yeah. So
let's not become the old married couple.
end of last year, end of November, I finished up at my last job, and I wasn't starting my new job, my current job, until
True.
the beginning of January.
So I remember we brought you on for a project. It was fun.
That's right.
Yep.
I had 5-6 weeks off of just leisure time.
Yes.
And so I was in the gym every day. I was running. I was working out. I was in this 12. I was doing my first proper bulk. And I got 4 weeks into that, and I was on track. And then Omicron hit, and I was like, well, I'm not going to the gym now because can't risk getting sick. Don't want to get the kids sick by accident, whatever. So I fell off the wagon there, and then I'd had this mole on the back of my calf for ages, and it's just I should probably get that looked at while I've got some time.
For viewers who are queasy, this is about to get real graphic. All right, go ahead. Trigger warning.
So I went to the dermatologist, and they had a look, and they're like, well, it's probably nothing, but we should have a look at it. They're like, we'll just cut it out, to be safe. Okay, no worries. And they got it out, and then they analyze it. They do their test and whatever, and they say, well, it wasn't a melanoma, but it was as close to melanoma as it could be without being melanoma. So they're like,
so now you put sunblock on your calves all the time. And
well, of all, I'm very pale, for those who haven't ever seen
if you've
me.
never met Michael before, he's
I'm
very
pale Australian, very man. White. But of all the places that I would expect to see a melanoma form, the back of my neck, relative to the rest of my body, is practically boot leather. So I was, they're like, nah, your neck's fine, but this is one little spot. So they cut it out, and they're like 2 weeks, and then before you can do anything. But then I went back after a week for them to take the stitches out, and they said, well, because it's on the back of the calf, you can't really do anything. You can't run, you can't squat, you can't.
So now you're screwed. You can't do all the other stuff. Yeah. So you just had to work on your biceps and your traps.
Right. So for 6 weeks, I couldn't do anything, and the only exercise that I was doing at that point was running, because that's all I could. You can do that outside. You can do that anywhere. And then so I didn't do anything for 6 weeks, and then I was sore, just I'd wake up sore, old man sores. And then so I went to the physio, worked through the physio, fixed the quad, fixed the hamstring, fixed the calf, all of these things ironed out. And then I've had this pain in my right, in my hip, in the other leg. And I went there on Thursday, and I'm like, I know it hurts, but I can't for the life of me tell you how to reproduce that pain. It doesn't hurt when I squat or do this or that.
Just keep moving my leg until it hurts. I'll tell you why. Yeah.
So the physio did all the stretches and the flexion and made sure that and there was nothing that they did that caused pain. Anyway, so I figured out what the pain was yesterday and how to reproduce it, so I know for next time. But because I have to go back for that second excision this Tuesday, it's going to be 6 weeks before I do anything. So, and at the end of the 6 weeks, it'll be the end of June. It'll be the middle of winter. So I ordered an elliptical. Well, a cross trainer, I guess you call that over there.
Yep. Sure. I don't know what that. No, I think it's an elliptical.
Yeah. Okay. It's the thing with the arms and the legs.
Yep,
it's
an elliptical.
But it's full
a
body,
gazelle.
so it's without. Yeah.
A gazelle. Chuck Norris was running on one of those bad boys a while ago. A gazelle, I think, right?
It's
I'm gonna have to look it up now.
It's much better for your body. It's a full body kind of cardio workout. And you because there's none of the impact, because you're on a moving plane as you're doing this. So. I've got that. I've been looking at. I've got my eye in a power rack, so I'm just going to get a power rack. Well, it's not really a power rack. It's like a multi-function trainer thing. Just waiting for the end of financial year sales to kick up and see if we can get it for a bit cheaper. And then I'm just going to can my gym membership and set up the home gym. So
there you go. You should get the total gym. That's the one that Chuck Norris does. Yeah. The total gym.
So yeah.
So that's our old man talk. Yeah, that's our old man talk.
What, 36 now? 37?
Yep, 37 today.
Your birthday. For those of you watching, you can see the happy birthday in the background. It's
Yes,
actually Jake's birthday this time.
it's actually my birthday. Michael always gives me crap for having this sign up. And he's like, dude, like, how many birthdays do you have? Like, take that thing down in between birthdays. And I'm like, no, literally, every time you see that, it's because we're actually celebrating a birthday. It just so happens that, like, a lot of our birthdays are on weekends, I guess. Or, maybe it's just we're having parties for the kids on their weekend. And so we always have the happy birthday sign up when it's like just part of the tradition. So today is actually my birthday. And yeah, 37. So, it's happening.
Birthday.
I'm getting closer and closer to 40. Thanks, man. Thank you. Appreciate it. But yeah, it's been a good day. So we're going to digress into all the news here. For those of you who showed up to actually hear about Laravel stuff, we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about that. So here we go, diving right in. 9.11, also known as 9.11, stalling while my computer loads. Here we go. Okay. Laravel team released 9.11 with an array join methods to check the existence of validated input, opt-in, deprecation, logging, and more. Let's start with the array join method. So Daniel Eckerman contributed an array join method, which we already have an array join method that's native, but I think this probably does a little bit different. Similar to the collection join method. Okay, so here's what you got. If you got an array with a couple items in it, and you then say tailwind, let's say array join stack. What is that? I'm trying to figure out how that's working there.
I think this is just like an object-oriented
okay. So basically what you do
implode.
here, yeah, it's implode. Yeah, exactly. So join is a little bit misleading for me because when I hear array join, I think you're just smashing two arrays together, right? But no, what this is doing is this is really taking an array and then it's imploding that array with a string in between each one of the items. It looks like, but it's a little bit more deceptive than that because it actually takes three arguments. Let's break it down just for a quick second here. So let's say you have Tailwind, Alpine, Laravel, Livewire in your array. The array join method will take the stack, which is those four items. As a second argument, it takes the thing you want to separate them with, right? Like you would have with an implode, right? So if you just said comma space, you'd end up with Tailwind, comma space, Alpine, comma space, Laravel, comma space, Livewire. That's what you'd end up with, right? But as a third argument, you can also pass an item that will be appended between the second to last item and the last item. So this ends up reading Tailwind, comma space, Alpine, comma space, Laravel, and Livewire. So no comma space at the end. It just does the and Livewire. So it's like, oh, okay, before the last item in the collection, we'll go ahead and do this. That's interesting. That's kind of interesting. Yeah, that's kind of cool.
Nice.
I guess I can see it. Yeah,
like if you've got
I can
tags
see
or
somebody.
something like that, and you want to display them as a list,
sure.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it gives you the option as well. You can
do the
put,
Oxford
like,
comma version.
and for the last one, and then it'll use the Oxford comma in your list. So
the Oxford comma, exactly.
Nice little addition there.
That is an interesting one. Yeah, and so it sounds like there's already something like collection join. Like there is already something for this for collections if you're using a collection, but this is now for the array as well. So Daniel Eckerman. Okay, very cool. Secondly, Sam Carre, the cowboy. If you've not met Sam Carre yet, you're missing out. Sam has some pretty cool packages out there. So Sam contributed two methods to the validated input class to check for the existence of validated input data. These methods are like request has and request missing, except only against validated data. You know what the other thing I forgot to do was? I forgot to check if I am actually recording the correct mic, and it's probably hard to tell now. Okay, I am. Wait, I didn't press the record button. Michael, I didn't press the record button.
Fortunately, I have got recording. Yeah.
I'm going to start recording right now. 3, 2, 1. Record myself. Okay, there it goes. I'm recording now. Whew, we can pick it up there. Okay. Sam Carre. Aren't you glad I checked? That would have been fun. Okay. So we have request safe has name and request safe has age false. Let's see here. Missing. Okay, interesting. So it just checks to see so it'll return a Boolean value, right? If
but
has
only against
or missing.
the validated data.
Yes, only against the validated data. So if you have the request, and then in this case, he's calling safe, which I think, help me out here. Safe basically says just grab the validated values out of there, right? The values that we validated against is what safe does.
Yeah, there's a distinction between safe and validated.
Right. Validated is like, give me the items that are in that. And safe is, give me the items that are in that and past validation.
Let's have a look. Let's go and
dig
look
in
it up
a little bit, shall we?
So
Let's
after
dig in.
validating incoming request data using a form request or a manually created validator instance, you may wish to retrieve the incoming request data that actually underwent validation. This can be accomplished in several ways. First, you may call the validated method on a form request or validator instance.
Okay.
This method returns an array of the data that was validated.
Okay.
Alternatively, you may call the safe method on a form request validator instance, and this method returns an instance of a Illuminate support validated input class, and the object exposes only, except, and all methods to retrieve a subset of the validated data or the entire array of validated data.
There you go. So if you return safe, you get that validated input class back, and then now you can chain on has and missing onto that, and it will return true or false. So it returns a Boolean value to tell you whether or not that is in it. And you can also pass in an array, which you can say, does it have these values, right? These selected values that are in this array, and it will return a true or false on that as well.
I think the key difference between the two is that validated will return you an array of validated data, and safe will return you an object.
A validated input object.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's it. Yep. Good. That's a good distinction there. Okay, we also have a deprecation of stack trace config option. Dries Vince contributed to making deprecation error stack traces opt-in rather than enabled by default. So there's two pull requests on this, 42.235 and 42.191 for further details on logging deprecation errors. So if you still want to log your deprecation errors, you can turn that back on, but it's going to be changed to opt-in rather than enabled by default. So that's 9.11. You can see all of the changes on the change log on the GitHubs. Okay, 9.12.
9.12 was released.
Oh, you know what else? One more thing, Michael. We forgot to talk about the sponsor at the top of the show. Who's our sponsor?
Our sponsor is our good friends at Honey Badger. They are error tracking, cron, and what's the other thing they do? They do cron and they do another thing.
Well, they do the webhooks too, but they're not.
We're
not going to talk about that really.
They do uptime.
They do amazing
and
webhooks.
Check-in monitoring.
Yeah, there we go. There we go.
All in one platform. So we will talk
Pretty
more
cool
about those a bit later on, but they are good, long-standing friends of ours.
Indeed. Okay, 9.12. Back to 9.12. Here we go.
Released May 10th or thereabouts. Laravel 9.12 has been released with a couple of cool new features. First, we have Tim McDonald, I think, is this one of his first contributions as an employee of Laravel. This is to prevent any stray outgoing HTTP requests while testing using the new prevent stray request method. So this is really in those scenarios if you're doing a HTTP fake. And when you do HTTP fake, you can pass it an array of key value pairs where you have the outgoing request URL and the response that you want to fake for that request. Now, before Laravel 9.12, only the things that you specify in that array would be faked. If you had another request being sent that you weren't catering to, for example, you wanted to test some integration with GitHub, but as part of that test, some request also went to Stripe. Previously, this would just make that request to Stripe rather than going through the fake, whereas with the prevent stray request method, it will throw an exception if there's an unknown or an unexpected request being sent. So definitely check that one out. We've also got Carol fail. Carol, cool. That's a interesting one, that one. Depending on where they're from, I suppose. Contributed a assert throws method, which adds a way to test exception handling using closures. So in PHP unit, there's like the expect exception method, or you can use the expect exception annotation to say that you're going to get an exception thrown as part of some test that you're running. So now you can use this assert throws and pass it a closure, which will then allow you to make assertions against not only the exception that's being thrown, but that it's a specific type or that the message is a specific message or error code or things like that. So definitely check that one out. Tim McDonald also contributed the ability to force all HTTP requests using Laravel's HTTP client to be faked. And if a HTTP request is not faked in a test, the test will throw an exception. So this was the prevent stray request at the top of this section. Next up, Dennis Islander contributed a throw if method to the HTTP client that will throw an exception if the condition evaluates true. So you can do a HTTP : get, HTTP : base URL, throw if true, get not found. So you can pass in some condition that evaluates true or false there. So definitely check that one out if you're wanting to make assertions against certain scenarios there. Next up, Jesper Nordsey contributed passing key value arrays to the get arguments and get options methods on the artisan commands for a slightly easier interface. So previously you would have to return an array of arrays. Now you can just return get arguments. It's possible to skip those if you don't want using without. Reading, copying a default public function. Anyway, what have we got here? Contributor passing key value arrays to get arguments and get options on artisan commands. I think this is supplementing the way that it's done currently, where you pass a test. You can pass an array with key values in an arbitrary order you find convenient without having to remember the specific. Okay.
Sorry, I was looking at the next one. I wasn't paying attention to what you were saying, so I'm not much help here. Are you looking at the passing key value artisan or arrays to artisan options?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Argument array values. Argument 1. Oh, okay. So this is allowing you to be able to pass arguments in an arbitrary order to your artisan commands. I believe when testing, right? That's what it looks like. This parameters. Oh, this is in the test.
I don't think so for the allowing passing keys. No, so I think maybe the previous way that you used to pass arguments was a little bit, like you said, like it almost reminds me of like named arguments. Is that what it's called? Named arguments in PHP? How you can specify the name and then you pass the value. It sort of feels like that a little bit.
This allows. Okay, so this allows. Yeah, okay. It allows you to pass a key value array where the key is the name of the argument and the value is the value for the argument, so that you can pass them in an arbitrary order, or you could omit arguments that you don't want to set. So yeah, as you say, like the named argument stuff in PHP 8. That makes more sense.
And it works for get arguments and get options for both of those.
Right.
Arguments and options, yeah.
So previously you would have to specify, like if you had a null as an option or an empty string or something like that, and then you wanted to pass like the first value and the fourth value, you'd previously have to pass all four and then know what those intermediate arguments were and have to provide the default values there if you just wanted to not specify them at all. Whereas now you can use a key value array to handle all that for you. So we got there in the end, but that's a nice contribution from Jesper. Next up, Patrick O'Meara contributed the inverse of the where morphed to and all where morphed to methods. So now we have a where not morphed to and all where not morphed to. So if you've made those, if you've ever had to make those queries, you can check that out. Tim McDonald also contributed sharing contextual information across all logging channels. So this is in a service provider's boot method. You can say log : share context, and then you could pass, in the example here, it's an invocation ID. So it's useful if you want to track a single request in your log file and passing some data in there. So rather than having to sort of come up with that yourself and then pass that into each instance of log, if you set this in your service provider's boot method, this will automatically be merged in with all of the contextual information. So that second parameter that you pass to the log method through a request. So definitely check that out. That'll be useful for keeping track of a single thing. So you could sort of mark, the top of your request coming in as like incoming request, and that'll have the invocation ID in there. And then you can go and search your log files for that same invocation ID, and you'll see the entire sort of process of that log flipping through your execution lifecycle. So that's a nice one there. There's some additional documentation in the Laravel docs for that one. You can now pass an array to delay method to specify the delay amount for specific channels. This is per notification channel. So if you're doing a user notify and you want to delay sending emails and SMSs, you can say user notify, open brackets, and then pass the class in there. And then you can say arrow delay and pass an array of key value pairs with the notification channel and the delay for sending that. So you can say mail should be sent in 5 minutes and SMS should be in 10 minutes. You can also define a with delay method on the notification class if you wanted to do this across all calls to that notification. So you can see the delaying notifications per channel documentation as well. Gee, that was a tangly one. There was some curly new things in there. And
yeah,
it
there
took us
was.
a while.
Yeah.
So if you're watching this, you'll be like, these people don't know what they're doing. And if you're listening to this, you won't even hear this little exchange. So
True deal. Hey, that delaying notifications per channel, I'm trying to think of a good reason for doing that. Like, why would you have mail and SMS go out at different periods of time? I'm just trying to like wrap my head around that. Why would you do that?
You know, you might have a script that runs at midnight and sends email. You know, email, most people may not have notifications on, but SMS usually is going to make a bing bing. So you might say like, send this email right now, but send the SMS in 8 hours or 9 hours or whatever, possibly.
Sure. Yeah, like I can imagine that being true if, like if, for example, like, okay, for compliance reasons, I could see using this because emails is pretty much like a wide open thing. Like you can send email whenever, like it doesn't matter. There's not a lot of rules around email necessarily. When you come down to like phones, people's phones and stuff, like for example, we have strict rules where you can't call or text somebody before 8 o'clock, I think, in their time zone.
Right.
So if you have a notification that's going to go out and it's like, hey, mail them now, that's fine. When you look at the timestamp on the, the time zone for the person that you're looking at, and you're like, it's actually not a time that we can send it. Let's just mark it to be sent at 8 a.m. Right? You know what I mean? That would be interesting. That is pretty cool, actually.
I think possibly the example is just showing that, like, you know, you could delay them differently per channel, but not necessarily that you would send mail and SMS separately. From the pull request itself, the description reads, we have a lot of users who don't want to receive notification emails during the night and some that do. So this is essentially just lifting that to...
I could totally see that being the case. Yeah, it's like if, there's going to be a lot, maybe I get a lot of emails. I'd rather not see them. I'd rather them not come in the middle of the night. Like I'd rather just get alerted in the morning and like, show me everything at 7 a.m. A bunch of stuff blew up last night because I'm not going to see it at midnight. So just show me in the morning. Yeah, it's kind of cool. Yep. Interesting. Nice. Yeah, that's a cool little addition there. Yeah, very cool.
There is currently a way of doing this by setting a property inside of the via method of a notification. So this just services that to a first class behavior. Yeah,
little sugar for you. Okay, that is all the releases we've got. We're going to move on to packages here. Aloya? How would you say that?
Aloya. Yeah, I guess so.
Aloya it is. Okay, so let's talk about Aloya. Aloya is a flat file CMS for Laravel 9. Yes, there are other ones, right? I feel like there's plenty of flat file CMSs we have talked about, but this one is pretty cool. So everyone's favorite human, who we have not mentioned by that name for a while, Mr. Paul Redmond. Thanks, Paul, for all your contributions to the Laravel News blog. We appreciate you. He contributed this one, Aloya. Oh my word, I'm going to get tripped up saying that every time. Is a flat file content management system for Laravel. So the reason why this is nice is because you don't need to rebuild your entire application to offer CMS capabilities. You can include Aloya in your existing application. So it offers these content types out of the box. So you can manage these in flat files in Markdown or in HTML. Here they are: a page, an article, a content block, or a meta tag. So for example, if you had the article, if you called article all, you're going to get a collection of all the articles, or you can say article find, and you can locate it by the slug title. A more advanced example of using an article, which would update the flat file in the chosen format, would be to say something like article find, pass in the slug. You can set the extension. Markdown is the default, but you could also say HTML, and then you can set matter. And when they say they have these content types out of the box, what it means is they have specified schemas, if you will. So like they have description, is published, is scheduled, the post date. And these are things that you actually don't think about until you're building it out yourself. So for me, it's like just the other day we had we built this little blog engine with Nova as the backend, and that's fine. It works great. But then we noticed when we moved something from draft to published, it marks it as a state of published, and then the is published is changed to a date time. But if you change it from published back to draft, it doesn't clear out the is published timestamp. And these are the little things you run into, or like you realize like after a while, like, oh, we actually need is scheduled, timestamp for that as well. So these content types that come with it out of the box and give you sort of the schema are actually pretty helpful. So you can do this article find, and you can do set matter, and you can update these keys in this article. And then you can set the post date, you can set the body all fluently. So it's really nice. It looks really nice and feels really good. And then you just save it. They also have a content block, which is another interesting content type because it allows you to create partial content blocks and render them in a blade file. So basically what you get with this is you get the ability to define all of the content really easily using these pre-built content types, but then you get complete control over how it's visually displayed, right? And if you look at some of their documentation, they basically say as much. They say, it's fine. There's a bunch of stuff out there that you could sort of pull in, but then you're sort of bought into how they decided it was going to be shown, right? And that's why everybody kind of builds their own, right? Is because of that reason. And so they're basically saying, we want to add a really light touch here. We're going to give you the content types. You can modify them, and then you can handle how you want to display them. So pretty nice. And then it also saves them as flat files. So it actually puts a .markdown file or a .html file in a location of your choosing. So you could save it to S3 if you wanted or something like that. As soon as you update that value, and then away you go. So pretty nice. Looks pretty cool. So if that's something you're interested in, check that out.
Yeah, definitely. That it seems simple as well. I know that there are some flat file solutions out there that are like kitchen sink. Everything that you could ever possibly, and like that's fantastic if that's what you need, and you're working, if you're working in an agency and you don't really know the kind of work that you're going to be doing, so you need to be able to have something that's as versatile as possible, then you might use one of those things. But if you're doing very basic stuff and all you need is some content blocks and the ability to post in pages and things like that, where you don't need a full blown experience, and you're able to do stuff in Markdown, then this is a nice option as well. So definitely check that out. It looks very interesting.
Yep.
Next up, we have a package here from people at Square. So Square, the payment processing company. This is Fluent Validation Rules with a package called Laravel Hyrule. It is an object-oriented, composable, and Fluent API for writing validations in Laravel. So we all know that validations at the moment have two main flavors. You've got the string, the pipe-separated string, and you've got an array. So you can say, post or title, arrow, and then square brackets, required, comma, string, comma, min, whatever. So Hyrule works by providing a builder object that lets you build rules around the expected form fields. And the fields can be simple scalar data types or complex arrays and objects. For example, you can have a basic rule that is just using the Hyrule create method to return a builder instance. And then you can say builder, arrow string, first name, arrow required, arrow max 255. And then go builder build, which will build out your rules array, which you can then pass into your validator instance. Most forms submit multiple fields, and in order to traverse multiple fields, you can just chain them together using the end method. So that the end method will essentially terminate that block of rules or that array value. Not only can you define validations for scalar fields, the package allows you to validate objects, arrays of scalar fields, and arrays of objects. So it's quite comprehensive in terms of like nesting and specifying deeply nested objects and arrays. And if you're, accepting JSON payloads and you want to validate something that's like 3 levels deep, you can do all of that with this package. And it kind of makes it a bit easier. You can, using indentation levels in, when you're defining these rules, you can specify, you can see kind of the hierarchy of all of these things a little bit more clearly than using the like arrow, the asterisk based validation rules. So I'm not sure if I like this or not. I think it's certainly an interesting approach. I don't know necessarily that it's more readable, but it certainly seems like it's more powerful in terms of what it gives you out of the box. So if that's something that you are interested in, then certainly have a look. We'll have links to it in the show notes. And it's interesting to see that Square is that's using Laravel.
Yeah, we were talking about this a little bit before the show, and I am interested sort of what their use case is for this, because the deal is when you got something like Square, right? I mean, I'm sure validation is a huge part of what they're doing. Like, they're a financial processor, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm sure they have really good reasons for why they're doing it this way. And I don't know. I would just be really interested to see kind of how that works. And speaking of payment processors, actually the other day, dude, I had a mess on my hands. My parents were here, and they were like, "Hey, let's meet for lunch." I was like, "Great, sounds awesome." And our payment processor went down, like right before, like our online payment processor was like, "Oh no." And thankfully, I was able to get it back up. But we have a backup payment processor. But one of the most important things that we have for that I just set up not too long ago, because I didn't realize I didn't have something set up, was uptime monitoring for it, to be able to know immediately that it's gone down. And that, my friends, is what Honey Badger can do for you. Because let's face it, right? Even if you have amazing developers like they have on Square, and even if you're writing custom libraries like they have at Square to handle validation, even code written by those amazing developers is going to have errors. It's going to happen, right? And you're going to have downtime, and you need to know very quickly when the downtime happens. So Honey Badger makes you a DevOps hero by combining all of those things: error monitoring, uptime monitoring, and check-in monitoring into a single, easy-to-use platform. One pane of glass. You go to one place and you can see everything. They send you alerts real time, and maybe you can even configure them to send them not in the middle of the night, but at 7 a.m. in the morning. Who knows? With all the context you need to see what's causing the error and where it's hiding, so you can quickly get in, fix it on, and get on with your day. So the included uptime and cron monitoring also lets you know when your external services are having issues vis-a-vis my payment processor, right? Or if you have background jobs go missing or silently fail. Go to honeybadger.io and discover how Star, Josh, and Ben created a 100% bootstrapped monitoring solution. No Shark Tank over here. Why is this important? Self-funding means they only answer to you, the developer, rather than a venture capital overlord. Thanks, Honey Badger, for sponsoring the show. We really appreciate it. What is it called in the UK? It's not Shark Tank. It's like Dragon's Lair or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, something. So anyway, none of that for Honey Badger. They're just bootstrapping it over there. Awesome team. So check out Honey Badger. Good stuff. Okay, on with the show.
Laravel Logfake 2.0 was released with support for Laravel 9 and a completely closure-based assertion API. So this is a project.
And another one from the Aussie man. Man,
it's amazing.
Tim
it's
McDonald.
Amazing what happens when these people go to work for Laravel. I mean, it's just churning stuff out. When you can focus on it full time, it's amazing.
Yep.
So this is
exactly.
This is Tim McDonald finally tagging a major version, version 2 of the Logfake package. As I said, it's Laravel 9 support. There is a rewrite of the log assertion API. There is context support and assertions against the channel's context, inspection capabilities using dump and DD, and support for custom messages. So the Logfake package is an excellent way to ensure critical logging happens through testing assertions. As a basic example from the README, you first bind the Logfake instance, and then you can assert logging. So this allows you to logfake : bind, and then in your tests, you can use log assert logged, and then you can check against the log entries to make sure things are done. Now, when this package first came out, I was like, I don't really use logging beyond like a debugging context when I'm like debugging specific issues. And you were a proponent of this log testing when it came out. And,
yeah, we were doing some of it at the time, yeah.
And I have turned and seen the light now. We use logging for a lot of things at my day job in terms of tracking, when certain data comes in, or when data was unhandled or malformed or mangled or whatever else. And so, putting in tests in place to make sure that we are logging those kinds of things that we need to kind of reproduce issues, and making sure that the correct data is going into them. I can see now, 2 years later, 3 years later, great value in such a package. So definitely check this out. There's also in version 2, as I said, some debugging tools. So you can use log dump and log DD and log dump all, and you can even use dump on specific channels to get log messages dumped out during a test, rather than having to, bounce around between your, your code and your test and your log file. You can just dump that all straight out into the terminal when the tests run. And you can also inspect logging and write assertions around them using the various log helpers. So you can say log all logs. You can make assertions that a specific number of logs were made, and so on and so forth. Along with
Good stuff.
Laravel
And
9.12's per channel logging context API that we mentioned earlier in the show, the log fake package also asserts against context, so you can make sure that some value is specified within there as well. So check out the available assertions documentation to see complete log assertions API that is available. To learn more about this wonderful package, get full installation instructions, documentation, and view the source code. We'll have all of that for you in the show notes.
Absolutely. And also the little image that he's got is like a take on Vegemite, if I'm not mistaken.
It is a Vegemite inspired logo for sure.
It is indeed.
So
if you're a fan of, so if you're a friend of Vegemite, you might want to check this one out. Okay, moving on. Speaking of logs, if you've not used Nova 4 yet, you should definitely check it out. I don't know if they've still got the deal on it.
No, I think it was
an unlimited license. Oh my gosh. I got that unlimited license ASAP. I was like, boom, yes, we use Nova all over the place and we love it. So if you didn't get the unlimited license during the sale week, you should still get it. It's worth it. And like I said, we use it all over the place. And there's a lot of updates coming out. I feel like it's like twice a week. Hemp Hill and the Laravel team are kind of pushing out.
Now that they've got version 4 out, and they're not sort of buckling down on getting that out, it's time to just churn out features and fixes and
they are
and whatever else, and they are. Hemp Hill doesn't stick to that weekly release cycle. He's just
he does not.
Whenever there's stuff to ship, we ship.
Push it. Yep, exactly. So he released the Nova Log Viewer source code, which is a tool for viewing your application logs via the Nova UI. So this is on novapackages.com. Novapackages.com is a site maintained by Titan. So a lot of packages for Nova are available over there. The UI allows you to select which log files to view, and even supports polling, so you can kind of do live viewing. So if you don't want to get into your server and do tail-f and find the log file, you can do polling, and it'll just pull it in for you automatically. Further, you can use the source code that they've released to see how these tools integrate with Nova, and you can use this as a starting point to build your own stuff. So if you wanted to see kind of behind the scenes, how is the Laravel team doing these sort of things, this is a great spot to start looking. So while looking through the source code, there's a couple of gems that he points out here. The Fetch API controller shows off a neat instance method that they've not used before called content after line. And again, this is Paul Redman, everyone's favorite human. So anyway, he's basically just espousing the benefits of taking a look through the source code and doing some source diving on this. If you've not written a package with Laravel Nova before, then you should check this out. And also, you could just use Laravel Nova Log Viewer because that's pretty nifty. All right, that's that.
Nifty.
A
Beautiful.
lot of log stuff today. We got the log context stuff. We got the log fakes. We got the Nova Log Viewer package. All good things.
All about the logs.
All about the logs.
Now it is tutorial time. The first one that we have here is an article written by, all the way down here, I think this is an Ash Allen special. Yes, Ash Allen. This is how to get a website's favicons in Laravel. There may be times in your Laravel applications where you want to display a favicon from another website. For example, you could have a link to an external site that you want to display the favicon with. If you're doing, website monitoring or uptime monitoring, you might want to fetch the favicon. So this is part of Ash Allen's side project called Mango2, where this is exactly what I wanted to do. It's an open source, privacy-first URL shortening service, and as part of the service, Ash is building an analytics dashboard where users can sign in and view all of the shortened URLs that they've created in the past. So putting the favicon on there is a nice little hint for displaying those kinds of things. So this is a tutorial, so I'm not going to read through the whole thing, but there is a new package called Favicon Fetcher that you can drop into your Laravel application and use it to get favicons. It has support for multiple drivers and also has caching and storage functionality as well. It's as good as you'd expect for any Laravel package. You compose or install, you publish your vendor files, and then you just call favicon : fetch. There is some additional features in there for fetch or, so that you can perform some expectation if the first lookup doesn't work. It throws exceptions if there's issues. There's different drivers, as I said. So you can use Google shared stuff, Favicon Kit, Unavatar. These are for parsing icons. So ICO files that are used for favicons are not necessarily going to be converted into PNGs and things like that. So definitely check those out. Different drivers, you can choose different drivers. You can use fallback drivers. You can add your own drivers, so on and so forth. And then storing them is as simple as calling store on your fetch response. All the good stuff, very well thought out. If favicons is something that you have felt you need to put into your applications, definitely check this package out and the tutorial. Thanks to Ash Allen for putting that together.
Nice job, Ash. Way to go. Okay, we've got a Laravel Jetstream add-on here. So this is, actually, I don't know if it's an add-on. So this is a tutorial, but it talks about adding CRUD with spaCy permissions. So spaCy permission is a package that you can add in, and Laravel Jetstream is a starter kit that helps you not only with auth scaffolding, but with extra functionality like Teams or two-factor authentication. But a lot of people struggle with customizing Jetstream after installation and with adding additional functionality on top of it. So this article basically dives into adding a simple CRUD with roles and permissions on top of Jetstream. So in this tutorial, they talk about installing Jetstream, getting signed in, and then where you land after you get signed in, which is your dashboard page. So they go through how would you create a database structure for adding tasks, not the Jetstream portion, but how would you go through building that out? How would you go through building an index for those different tasks? How would you introduce Jetstream table, which is a component that is already included when you use Jetstream. How can you end up using that component, reusing it for your own purposes with Tailwind CSS? How can you use different buttons and forms that also come with Tailwind, or sorry, not with Tailwind, but with Jetstream? So it's basically, if you want to build a basic app while also scaffolding out your auth and all the team stuff with Jetstream, this is a good tutorial to check out. This is by Pavilis, who is a absolutely prolific Laravel vlogger, blogger. This dude is all over the place. And I actually, of the community links that I have, I've got two of them are his, 2 videos that he's put out. So if you're not already following Pavilis's YouTube channel, you should definitely do so. He's got some great tips on there, and I think he posts like literally daily. So this guy's he's a monster. He's awesome.
It certainly takes something to be able to put out content every single day.
I mean, and this is not like a short tutorial.
No,
there's a lot here.
There's a
lot
chunky
here.
one. And
yeah,
there's a second one. This other one that we have, Laravel roles and permissions, gates and policies explained, is another meaty tutorial from Pavilis. It goes into using gates in terms of permissions and how they're synonymous. There's various ways to check gate permissions. You can use checks using middleware. So the middleware, you can use can : and then the name of the permission you want to check against. You can use the can method directly against a user. You can use cannot. You can make assertions using the gate facade, using gate allows, gate denies. You can do abort. So you can do abort if gate denies. You can use this authorize in your controllers. There's form request classes that you can use as well.
It's all over the place. Yeah, so many ways.
Model-based sets of permissions using policies, which are really nice if you want to do, authorization based on particular models. You can say, view any, view, create, update, delete, restore, force delete. This automatically injects the user and the model where relevant, and then you can make tests against, or you can make conditional checks against all that kind of stuff to determine whether or not a user can do a particular action. There's the ability to use universal sets of permissions using things like storing these values in the database. You can use the before method to say, check before any policy check, go and look in here to see, is it an admin user that should just have super privileges for everything? And then talks about saving the permissions in the database. And it talks about, again, the spaCy Laravel permission package. It talks about Bouncer and, of course, refers back to the article that we had just spoken about. So definitely check that out. There's a lot of good stuff there. in terms of using this stuff for validation and authorization and permission checking. Check it out. Thank you to Pavilis and all the wonderful work that you do for our community and the content that you put out.
And these are like hard-fought lessons, honestly. I feel like that's very true. Roles and permissions is one of those things where it seems really simple on the surface. And it is really simple to get started with. Laravel makes it super easy. Like define a gate, boom, you're done, right? Have a model, define a policy, boom, you're done. But there is a lot of fine details to getting this right so that you can manage it easily and you can discover quickly what abilities different roles have and all those things. And then, what package does what and how is it working behind the scenes to actually accomplish its purpose. So this is stuff that if you've not had to build out any sort of complex set of rules for who can do what, this is one of those articles you're going to want to look at before you have to do that, because it explains really simply. And this is one of the gifts that Pavilis has, is he really does have the ability to take all this content and all this material and distill it down to the most necessary pieces of information that you need to know so you can get going with it as quickly as possible. So if you've not had to do permissions, not had to do roles, not had to do anything like that before, you can look at the Laravel docs and it's sufficient to get going, right? It makes it super simple. But if you're going to need to do anything a little bit more complex even, this is going to be a great article to start with, and he's going to point you in some directions of some packages that can really help, because there's a couple out there as well that you can use, right? We already talked about Spassy. There's also Joseph Silber, who has Bouncer, which is great too. So yeah, check those out. Good stuff. Hey, I am looking to see if we want to do community links. We've got another one by Ash Allen, 20 useful Laravel tips, which is great. It's 20 useful Laravel tips. And then we have 2 by Pavilis. I'll just mention them here. He goes through debugging Laravel collections, so dumping step-by-step results, which is cool. So if you need to step through your collections, because a lot of times you're going to have collect these items, then do a filter, then do a map, then do a reject after you've done a map. Then we do an each over that, and you need to step through. He has a video tutorial, which again, his videos are 6 minutes long, right? So not too big of an investment if you need to do something like that. Cool one to check out. The other one was this idea of nested controllers and scoped bindings. He says for security. And real quick, the explanation for security on there, it'd be something like if you have I don't want to say a tenant, but if you had a group and then a group had a list of tasks, you would maybe have group / your URL would maybe be something like todos.com/group/1/tasks/3 or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Well, if somebody ended up doing /tasks/100, maybe that doesn't belong to group 1. Maybe that belongs to group 5. But if you're not careful about how you're doing your bindings, it'll just automatically say, yeah, sure, groups /1/tasks/100. Sure, yeah. Give it to them. Well, Laravel has this new way to basically make sure that the task that is getting loaded up actually belongs to the group that was previously specified earlier in the URL. And this used to be a pain in the neck to do, a really big pain actually. Taylor has made it laughably simple, but Pavilis goes through how to do that and set that up and how to make sure that you're using that well. So a couple items there in the community links that I thought were worth highlighting. We'll put them in the show notes. So check those out if you get a chance. And we're right at about 40 minutes here, so we're gonna wrap this one up. Michael, any final words of wisdom for our audience?
No, sorry to those of you that watched this video and had to make it through that. We're in Struggle Town today, I think.
Absolutely, yeah. It's okay. It's late a bit here. It's 11:11. I'm gonna go watch some Severance or something, I think. So good times. Okay, folks. This was episode 167. If you'd like to find show notes for this episode, you can do so at podcast.laravel-news.com/167. If you'd like to give us a shout out on Apple Podcasts or on your podcatcher of choice, we would really appreciate if you'd give us 5 stars. That would be awesome. And of course, with any questions or comments, hit us up on Twitter at Jacob Bennett, at Michael Dorinda, or at Laravel News. Also, shout out to Luke, who is going to be starting on my team on Monday. Super stoked. Nice. Mr. Luke, you guys will be seeing good stuff from that dude. He's an up and comer for sure. All right, everybody. That's it. Have a wonderful, wonderful week. Wish you well, and we'll see you next time.
See y'all. Bye.